Welcome to the Coming Home Well podcast, the show that educates, supports, and advocates for the veteran community. Your host, Dr. Tyler Piron, U.S. Army retired, will bring you exciting conversations with amazing guests about resources, research, and military history, all geared to helping our warriors to come home well. Here's your host, Dr. Tyler Piron.
Welcome back to Coming Home Well. I'm your host, Tyler Piron. And as always, we have a guest, and we're going to go back and talk about some veteran services that are out there. This is a great organization, and it may not be for you, but it might be for somebody that you know, that you care about, that you think about. And what I like about it is they're all over the country. They've got places, a bunch of places, but one of them right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm excited about that. We've dealt with so many national organizations that sometimes I like to find ones that are a little bit closer to home. And we have a really exciting guest. He's done a bunch of things. He was in the service. I'll let him tell all about himself. But Jeremy Stalnecker is here to join us with the Mighty Oaks, or Mighty Oaks. I keep adding a "the" in there. I don't think there is.
That's
but
right.
It's Mighty Oaks. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us on Coming Home Well.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be with you.
So let's find out a little bit about Jeremy. Who are you?
Yeah. Well, I guess a lot of facets to my life, as is true of everyone. A husband, father. I've got 4 kids. My 2 oldest, one is an accountant. She's 25. I have a police officer son who is 23, and then 2 teenagers. So we stay pretty busy as a family. Having our first
I
grandchild
feel that.
in about 6 months. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so life is marching on. It's hard to believe when you get there. You're like, you just kind of think, I'm not old enough to be here, but here we are. So so that's really who I am and kind of what I focus on. But I served the United States Marine Corps. I was an infantry officer, had the great privilege of serving in that capacity. Um, Late 90s, early 2000s, and my last deployment was to Iraq in 2003, actually to Kuwait in 2003. And we sat on the border between Kuwait and Iraq for a couple of months. And then March 19th, 1-5, my battalion was the Marine battalion that advanced across the border on the center axis of advance, secured the southern objective in Iraq. First KIA of the war, Lieutenant Shane Childers, first American service member killed in Iraq, was one of our lieutenants. And that was the beginning of it for us. We made our way, kind of did a road march to Baghdad. Baghdad hit there on April 10th. And the Battle of Baghdad was also our battalion. So that was my last fight, if you will. Last engagement was on April 10th. We spent a couple more weeks in Baghdad, in and around, and then retrograded home. I had already made the decision before that deployment to get out of the Marine Corps. And there's a lot that goes into it. Basically, I didn't want to go back to a peacetime Marine Corps. And we all knew that the war was over, right? so the president.
How little did we know?
Little did we know. So went through all that. I was very proud of my time and the opportunity, and then just thought, all right, it's done. So I don't want to spend the rest of my career in a peacetime Marine Corps, and transitioned out. Yeah, weird time. Weird time. But transitioned from there into ministry of all things. I went to work at a church and served on the staff of a church for 5 years. I was the pastor of a church for another 7 years. And in the process of all of that, through some Marines that I had served with and some connections through the Marine Corps, I got to know a guy named Chad Robichaud, who also a Marine, Force Recon Marine, several tours to Afghanistan, diagnosed with severe post-traumatic stress when he came home. And long story short, through mentorship and the right people speaking into his life and faith, says that he felt like he found the cure. That's how he would put it. I felt like I found the cure to this PTSD thing, and I want to help other people. So he and his family started Mighty Oaks, and I met him right as that was happening. They were getting it off the ground. We met, and he said, "Hey, can you help me with this?" Serving primarily combat veterans at the time who were coming home, getting lost in the VA system, or not even trying because it was so overwhelming. This is 2012, 2013. For those that remember that time, it was just...
It's not a whole lot better, but it is a little better.
Yeah, well, and it was crazy 20 years, right? But kind of everything came together around that like 2010 to 2015 timeframe where I think this is just me. The VA system just got so bogged down after that many years of service members
Hmm.
coming home that some major changes need to be made. But a lot of people are getting lost in the
Oh yeah.
process, and so Mighty Oak started, and we started serving primarily combat veterans, primarily people that we knew. A lot of folks that I had served with, and then that grew over time. When people find help, they tell other people who need help, and grew to the point where now we're serving about 1,000 people a year through one of our week-long programs. As you mentioned, we have locations across the country, and
Wow, 1,000
we've been at it
people a
for a long
year.
time.
That's, people. Some people may go, "Oh, 1,000 people. That's, it's not all that much." Let me tell you, anything that's in a
Yeah,
week long that is serving 1,000 people, that's a big deal. That's a lot of folks, and the logistics behind that are
yeah,
very significant, folks.
yeah. I've
That's
joked
not a
that we're
small
basic.
sneeze.
Yeah, we're basically a logistics organization. I joke because we move over 1,000 people a year across the country, around the
Hmm.
country. We're in California, Ohio, Texas, and Virginia. And so, depending on when a person, a man or a woman, has availability, we'll get them to where they need to go. So sometimes that means someone living in, Iowa ends up in California and vice versa. So a lot of logistics and then a lot of programming that goes into that. We have about 43 this year weeks of programming
Wow.
and serving a lot of folks. So it's come a long way from where we were when we got started.
Well, that's the greatest thing about having a good program. Success breeds success. I mean, there's a million veteran organizations out there, and I might be only slightly exaggerating, but there's a lot of people who want to do good things, but don't
Sure.
really get it going, and it doesn't last more than a year or two,
Yep.
or it's just kind of in limp mode. And
Sure.
that's one of the things that I look for when I'm looking for organizations to talk to share their message. What's the track record here? What's the
Right.
likelihood that when somebody reaches out in 6 months that they're actually going to be there? And Mighty Oaks has been around. It's I think what 10 years now, 12. It's
Yeah, we started programming in 2012,
Yeah,
so
so
whatever that is, 12
right,
years.
12
Yeah.
years. Yeah. That is a good
Yeah.
success story. That's a big deal. So walk me through what is Mighty Oaks? I know it's helping with PTSD. I
Yeah.
got that. But there's a lot of ways to help with PTSD.
Sure. Yeah, no, you're right. And there are a lot of, like you said, good organizations. I think the actual number, and it's hard to quantify this exactly, but they say there's about 44,000 veteran service organizations in the United States. 44,000. So, like you said, a lot of people trying to help, and we still have major problems. So you wonder what's going on, right? But and that can be any, from outdoor programs to, whatever,
Hmm.
therapy programs. We are a faith-based nonprofit, so that means a couple of things. One, it means we approach this trauma thing from a bit of a different perspective, but it also means we're non-clinical, and I'll start with that first. So, being a non-clinical program means that when um, someone attends our program, and this particularly makes a difference in the active duty community and the first responder side. When someone attends our program, even if they come from an active duty command, or they're currently working as a police officer or firefighter, because we serve first responders as well, we're non-clinical, so we don't have a paper trail that follows them back to their command or back to their workplace.
They're just
And
on
that's one of the
vacation as
reasons.
far as they know.
Yeah, and it's funny, people will say, well, I can get time off for leadership development or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, put whatever you want in the application. I don't care. We'll
Hmm.
sign it. Um, and police departments, active duty units have been very good about just cutting people on permissive orders or cutting them loose so they don't have to burn vacation. And that allows them to get help
Hmm.
and then go back to work. And that's very, very significant, particularly for folks who have top secret clearance or some clearance level that they're concerned that getting treatment for post traumatic stress would impact. So
Very
that's
much
one
so.
thing. So we're non-clinical. The other side, though, is that we're faith-based, and again, that means some very specific things to us. Very broadly, what that means is we start with this belief, this fundamental position that God is, and if God is, then as a creator, He designed us with purpose and direction. And this is really important because when someone comes to us, often they've transitioned out of the military. They're going through a transition, maybe even within the military. They're dealing with trauma that's happened in their lives, primarily before they even got into the military, that they brought in with them, and that was made worse because of their service. But they're dealing with all of these things, and in the process, they've lost identity. That answering that question, who am I? And they've lost purpose. And so we start with this fundamental belief that if God created you, and we believe He did, then you're not without purpose, you're not without hope, you're not without design. You just have to learn how to align to that. You have to find your identity again, or maybe for the first time, and you need to move toward that. And if you do, then the trauma that you've been experiencing, these other challenges that you have in your life, they don't go away. You don't forget about them, but they don't have a hold on you anymore. You're able to move forward in a meaningful way.
You know, I
And
love this. I love this
yeah,
entire concept because this is something we talk about a lot is, people get out of the military, especially if you joined young, and that's your identity. Your
that's right.
self-worth,
That's right.
that's
Yep.
so much of that. And we're
Yep.
like, go find find your tribe and find your purpose.
Yep.
What is it you want to
Yep.
do? And if
That's
you can
right.
do those two things, a lot of good things happen after that. But so often your
Yeah.
entire, and I see this especially in retirees, early retirees, they're just retiring.
Yeah.
Their entire identity has been in the uniform and in the rank they
Right.
wore or the job they
Right.
did or some combination. And when they're Joe, and 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, they don't know what the heck they're doing.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. And I have that conversation, what you just explained, when talking about the veteran suicide epidemic that we talk about. And put up
Huge.
whatever numbers you want to, right? I think this audience is understanding of just how horrible it is, whether it's 22 or, probably closer to 40, whatever those numbers are, right? One is too many, but it's at epidemic proportions. And we spend most of our time when we talk about issues around suicide, whether it's veteran suicide or just, in the United States, that number's growing, talking about interventions. So, what do we need to do to prevent someone from hurting themselves? Typically, that's the route that we go down. So, we lock up guns and we take away medications and all of these things, right? Really, what we're attempting to do, though, is deal with the fruit.
Yeah, the
We're at the tail
reactivity.
end. Now, the activity, we need to prevent people from hurting themselves. Intervention is often necessary. But if we can get to the actual problem, which is what you just talked about, a lack of identity and a lack of purpose, if we can help people understand who they are and the direction they need to go with their lives, then these other areas that we're talking about will begin to remedy themselves. I think we're attacking that issue and so many other issues from the wrong end. It's about identity and purpose.
So let me ask you, because I know I get asked these type of questions. Is it faith-based, kind of like AA, faith in a higher power, or is it a Christian focused or some specific religion? I
Yeah.
assume Christian, but that doesn't always the case. But is
Yeah.
it more faith or is it more a traditional Christian sort of background?
Yeah, that's a great question. Faith is very broad, and we take a traditional, I guess it would be traditional Christian background. So it's a Christian approach. And what that means fundamentally is we take the Bible at face value and we base what we believe and what we teach on that. So it's
Mhm.
Christian in that sense. Yeah, it's not simply belief in a higher power, although interestingly, a lot of research and a lot of studies have been done. If you have belief in a higher power, that goes a long way, right? I would just say that
Yeah.
your your faith is only as good as what your faith is in. And so we take a Christian approach to establishing a foundation that's based on that relationship with God through Christ. That's Christian. And once that foundation is in place, then the rest of the house, so to speak, can be built.
So if I was interested and or if somebody is interested, who's eligible? How do they get in touch?
Yeah.
Walk me through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. So since we just talked about Christianity, you don't have to be a Christian to attend. First of all, a lot of people say they do. In fact, a lot of people, if you ask them on night one, they come on Monday, it starts, we ask them, why are you here? And we kind of go around the room, give us your name, branch of service, and what you hope to get out of this week. Um, a lot of them say the exact same thing. I am here because I've tried everything else and nothing's worked. Often people will say, I don't care about faith. I don't care about God. I don't care about any of those things, or I'm even hostile toward those things. Um, but I don't know where else to
I
go.
do
So you
hear
don't have to
that.
be a
Yeah.
Christian. Yeah, you don't have to be a Christian to attend. So that's one thing. You need to be a veteran, an active duty service member, a first responder, or the spouse of one of those. And we understand that so many of these post-traumatic stress and trauma issues are issues that impact, the extended family and definitely the spouse. And so we
Oh
serve those
yeah.
folks. You go to our website, there's a place to apply. You fill out that application that goes to our team, and we begin working with you to figure out the best time. We cover the cost of the program, and we cover the cost of travel, and that's significant. We
That's
we do
huge.
everything we can, yeah, everything we can to remove the obstacles to getting help. And back to what you were saying earlier, it's a lot of logistics. It's we just need you to sign up to register, and we'll take care of the rest. We'll get you where you need to go, and we cover the cost of that.
Even getting there and then feed and getting
All of
people
it,
in
yeah,
the all these processes, when
yeah,
you think back, like, wow, that's a lot of things to happen in
yeah.
order
That's right.
to get that help and to get everyone together. And it's a labor of love, I'm sure.
Yeah, it
um
is.
and so you've got 1,000 people this year, 40 something weeks of treatment, of programs scheduled out,
Yep.
and 4 different locations out in California, Texas, Virginia, and Ohio.
That's right. We
Wow.
have yeah, actually two locations in Texas. So we have five different places that we carry out our program. And, think treatment center, think ranch, because that's what all of them are. They're ranches. Um, Obviously, it's not a rehab program or something like that. It's just an environment that we try to set that gives the participants the space to think through these big questions and to maybe think thoughts they haven't thought before, or ask questions and seek answers they haven't gone after before. Um, Trauma is a part of life. It's common to all of us. It's not reserved simply for those who served in the military. But very often, coming out of the military, having dealt with some trauma, again, whether in childhood or somewhere else along the way, a series of bad decisions are made. And so, because I'm feeling this way,
I'm only
loss of
laughing
identity,
because it's
loss of
so true.
purpose, it is, and it's not the trauma that becomes the problem. It's the series of bad decisions on the other side of the problem. It's trying to numb my pain. It's trying to distract myself from how I feel and what I think. It's illicit relationships and drugs and alcohol. It's all of these things that may have been provoked by this trauma, but it was not dealing with the trauma the right way the first time that leads to these other things that then
Hmm.
leads to broken relationships and all of the other issues we see in the veteran community. And so we often meet people at that point where everything's gone wrong because of bad decisions they've made, and now they don't know how to
Yeah,
get out
it
of that
took
or
you
move forward.
5 or 10,000 bad decisions to get you
Right.
here.
That's
One
right.
good decision isn't gonna
Right.
make everything good.
Right. And so even with us, we'll spend a week with a student and we do our very best to help them get to the place where they begin seeing things correctly, making good decisions, are motivated again to rebuild those relationships, et cetera. But they're only with us for 5 days. And so we have a very robust aftercare, we call it aftercare program, which is now that you've attended our program and you've made those decisions, right? You've made decisions to um, move beyond the addictions and work on the relationships and whatever. We're going to move forward together. Now we have a team that will spend, I mean, the rest of your life if you want us to, but um, definitely the next 6 months working with you to get you the counseling that you need to get you into programs if that's what you need, addiction and those kind of programs.
Right.
Whatever it is you need to follow through on the decisions that were made while you were with us, we'll do our best to resource those to you. And we've got some great partners that make that possible as well. So yeah, it is a very holistic in terms of we understand maybe there are some physical issues, certainly some substance issues, a lot of relationship issues, childhood stuff, and on we could go. We get that. What we're trying to do during that 5 days is just push you to a point where you're making the right decision
Hmm.
to get up and start moving forward. Once you've made that decision, then the hard work really begins of putting those pieces back together and getting you the help you need.
No, I'm totally on board with that because you spend so many decisions getting away from the thing that is the
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah. Right.
and then you create very bad situations in life. Then all of a sudden, you realize, hey, this sucks. I want to fix it. And you're
Yep.
at your
Yeah.
end of your
Yeah.
rope, and all of a sudden, it's not a magic that happens. It's a,
That's right.
hey, I'm going to make better decisions. I'm going to make gooder decisions, as somebody once told me. But
Yeah.
it's that incremental step by step. So you have this aftercare. It's primarily 6 months, but it'll go on for as long as somebody wants.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
That's right.
and I'm sure that there's all sorts of variability in that, where some people want us to go much further. Some people are like, I've got it. I'm on a good path. I'm done. Um,
Yeah.
and this is totally free.
Right.
How in the world are you
Yeah.
getting funded?
Yeah, well, and that's the challenging part, but that is man, some wonderful people. You know, we talk about America's love for veterans, and the way that we're funded in so many other programs is through people that care about America and care about America's warriors. And yeah, so we're privately funded. That's a lot of work, obviously, to let people know what we're doing and let them know how they can support. It costs about $3,500 per student to attend our program. And so a lot of good people every year, um, hopefully pray for us and support us in other ways, but are also donating to make it possible for that to happen. I even look at the locations that we have, those 5 different locations. We don't own any one of those 5 locations. Those are all used in partnership with the actual owners. So some of
Ah,
those are private
gotcha.
people. The one there in Haymarket is another nonprofit that allows us to use that property. And so, yeah, just great relationships with people that really care about America's veterans.
I've been remiss. The website is mightyoakprograms.org. I'll put it in the show notes so you don't have to look it up if you're driving, or
Right.
you can just see it afterwards. And there's a big donate button if you're looking to go donate. That's another
Sure.
great, because every good organization needs donations. Trust me, I know this.
Sure.
I'm the worst at fundraising, but I try to at least give a shout out to the folks
Right.
that are doing some great work. So let me ask you this. What are some of the, I don't know, exemplar cases? Like, hey, this, without naming names, some
Yeah.
good relatable stories about what Mighty Oaks has been doing to help people.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many. Again, over the last 12 years or so, we've had 6,000 folks plus graduate. We see. I, I think it's. I think it's been 6 years. I think it's been 6 years since we've had our first responders program, and so as police officers and firefighters, and um, man, folks putting marriages back together, and even when maybe a marriage can't be put back together because of the damage that was done, uh, reigniting, initiating relationships with children and those kind of things. A success story for us is when someone takes what we've given them, the tools that we've equipped them with, and they go on and live their lives. Every one of our instructors came through our program as a student.
Hmm.
That's something else that makes us unique.
That is unique.
Um, it's not a top-down program. It's not us telling you what you need to do. Every single person who stands in front of a class and teaches or sits in a small group and guides a discussion started as a student. And then over a process of about a year, we take, those who are interested through a process of learning and growing so they can stand up in front of a class and teach and do those things. And so it's very much a peer-to-peer, mentor to mentor, kind of eyeball to eyeball, or mentor to student, eyeball to eyeball type of situation, but specific, right? We've had so many years of war. We have these incredible warriors, men and women who've served in extremely difficult combat environments. There's a one story that I tell a lot. There's a Marine, first name was Joe. He came to our program and served in the United States Marine Corps, served as a master gunnery sergeant. That was, an E9. That was the last um, billet that he had, was a multinational kind of task force. So he had been all over the world. He had done just about everything. Had some problems prior to hitting his 30-year mark. And in in all of that, um, was asked to leave the Marine Corps, asked to retire, and so he did. He was forced out. Um, Frustrated and angry, that led to alcohol abuse and on as you can imagine. We pick up the story a few years later where his wife reached out to us. He was in the hospital. He had gone away. He had taken off. She didn't know where he was. Finally found him after about a week. He was in a hotel, sixth floor of this hotel room. Got the manager to open the door. When she walked in, he was standing at the window. He said, "I love you." He turned around and jumped out the window, 6 stories.
Wow.
Um, Again, I would attribute this to the providence of God, but the landscaping around the bottom of the building, the sprinklers were broken, and so they had been going all night. The water had flooded kind of the landscaped area, and he missed the sidewalk and landed there. So it
Oh,
was soft
jeez.
enough that it didn't kill him. Did a lot of damage, but didn't kill him. Ended up in the hospital. She came to us and said, when he gets out of the hospital, I need for him to go somewhere. Where's he going to go? And we took him into our program. He was just learning to walk again, so he was kind of leaning on one of those canes that had the four, little things at the bottom, and he'd lean on
Octopods.
that. Yeah, right. Just completely broken, right? Broken physically, broken emotionally and spiritually, and every way you can possibly imagine. He spent a week with us, and I was there at that program. I'm not at every one, but I was at that program, and I remember the last day. We give people the opportunity to talk and say whatever they'd like to say at the end of the week, and he stood up, leaned on that cane, and said something to the effect of, "When I left the Marine Corps, I didn't think I'd ever be able to lead again. My whole purpose, my whole identity was about that, and when I lost that, I thought I lost everything."
Hmm.
And what I've learned since then, what I've learned this week, is that I can still serve and I can still lead. He continued to get better and went from that program. This was 3 or 4 years ago, and became the guy who was chasing veterans down in bars and pulling them out and working with families. He started to work with us, and just an amazing, amazing story. And it's amazing, all of those pieces, right? But it's amazing because he's really a picture of what happens when a person makes a decision to do
Yep.
something different and then begins putting those pieces into their life that need to be in place for that to happen. And
And
so
really finding your
um,
purpose.
that's it. And understanding it's not about a uniform, it's not about a rank, it's not about a bill, it's not about any of those things. We're proud of those things and we should be.
Hmm.
But the military is kind of like sacrilegious, right? But the military, it's a job. It's a it's a job with a lot of identity, and it's different than a lot of other jobs, right? But it's a job. And as we used to say in the Marine Corps, the big green machine is going to go on without you. And when it does, that's going to hurt because you didn't think it would be able to, but it will. And so, how do you find your identity and purpose on the other side of that? He's just one example of many folks who have.
I always say, no matter how much you love the army's never going to love you back.
That's right,
And,
and
and
that's
and
that's right.
that's the reality of every service, everything, and that's it's what you do. In fact, I worked with a
Yeah,
guy who was a 10-year Mustang wing officer. Was a drill instructor. He was a Marine,
yeah,
retired as a major. Great guy. 5 years later, you would never know he was ever in the Marines, and he had been in like 25 years. And I worked with him afterwards. And he was just a down to earth, funny guy. Just he said, "Yeah, that was my job. It wasn't who I was."
yeah,
And I was like, "But that was like more than half your life." And he's like, "Nah, it's a
yeah,
job." And
yeah,
he was very, very great guy. And then it always struck with me that, hey, you got to balance these things out. And I see that a lot. And I think that's a great illustration that you were telling us about. Sergeant Major, E9,
yeah,
senior NCO, and all of a sudden, hey, you got to
yeah.
retire. But this got to go to the core of your psyche of who you are, and didn't react well, right?
It did not react well, and to be fair, to advance to that level, obviously you've put, not just time and effort, but you have put a lot of things aside. You've
Yeah.
sacrificed a lot of things personally, and you have invested. And I think we do that in the process of time and don't realize that eventually this stops. And if that's where I've put all of my effort, energy, and focus, I don't have anything else out here.
Hmm.
And so that retirement or that transition comes and we feel lost. Um, but it's the
Especially with
people
the
who,
family part, and that's the other half.
right, right,
He's lucky
that's
to
right.
have a family because many times people put aside all those relationships, which is why I thought it was interesting you have the spouses able to come as well. And
Yeah.
that there's not a lot of programs that have that.
Right. We separate our program, men's and women's programs. They're separate for, I think, to me it's obvious, right? People will ask like why? Well, because men are more honest when women aren't around, and I think women are the same, right? Um, but in both of those programs, we have spouses. Sometimes the spouse is the husband, sometimes it's the wife. And it not only helps them because they've been through a lot. If they're not the service member, though, they don't have the resources or the help they need, but it also gives them a view of what their service member spouse is dealing with, maybe helping them understand what they mean when they say certain things or act in certain ways. And so it's been very, very helpful. A perfect situation for us is that the husband and the wife will both attend a program at different times. And then we scholarship people to a marriage program. We don't do a marriage program, but we scholarship people to one. So they've come to our programs, they've made some good decisions, and then they're able to go to another program together. And
Little
yeah,
fine
that's a great
tuning.
situation when that happens. Yeah, well, and together, right? And so they've individually made decisions, and now they can make some of those together. Yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. I'm so impressed with this organization. So, what do they have to do? You just go on the website, Mighty Oak,
Yeah.
and then sign up.
Go to the website, mightyoaksprograms.org, and on the website, there's a place to apply. Hit that button, fill out that application, and send it off. We have a pretty large team that will receive that and work with you to find the week. Again, we got something going on all the time. Find the week that you can get into a program, and we'll make that happen. So yeah, we try to make it as simple as possible. Understanding people need the help that they that they need but won't get on their own.
Yeah, that's the other half. And I like the fact that it's a non-clinical, so it's not psychology, it's not
Right.
psychiatry,
Yeah.
faith-based, but you don't necessarily have to be a Christian, but that's the
Yeah. And,
foundation, which makes a lot of
and
sense.
if people don't, that's what I say all the time, right? It's 5 days. So if you don't like it, you're not out money.
Yeah,
You haven't all you've invested is 5 days. And I'm sure that even if you don't like most of it, there's something that you can take away. And
absolutely.
we would like to offer that, and make that possible.
So Jeremy, I've asked you a number of things. I'm sure I forgot something. What should I have asked you about but didn't?
Well, maybe a couple of things, but probably to me the most important thing are the other resources that we have on our website. There is a place for downloadable resources. We have blogs and videos and other things intended to help people, but we also have produced a series of kind of mini books, one on resiliency, one on post-traumatic stress, and one on suicide. And those are available to be purchased, but they're also available for free download. So if you read, ebooks, they're available for free download. So in addition to our program, which we know is hard for some people to get to, um, we do everything we can to produce as many resources so that maybe you're waiting to go to a program, you have those. Maybe you're just interested in trying to figure some things out, but maybe you're a family member, maybe you're a friend, maybe you're not the one who's been in the military or is struggling. These resources are there so that you can push those to the people in your life that need that kind of help. And so, in addition to the program, go and find those resources and please use them. They're there for you.
No, that is an awesome thing that I should have asked about because I knew about them. I've been checking them out and
Oh, that's
I
right.
saw the videos. They have their own podcasts as well. Go to the site, you'll see them. They're great. I'm sure you can go to all the local podcasts. If you're listening to us,
Right.
you know how podcasts work. There's a
Yeah,
couple
right.
different ones. So yeah, that is a great resource. I'm all about making sure people understand and have access to those resources because there's some great programs out there, and but
Yes.
at the same time, the suicide rate. I just saw the latest report. Even the active duty troops, they've gone up again.
Yeah.
In the veteran
Yeah.
community, we're not good at measuring it, and so you'll see
Yeah,
anything,
that's
oh,
right.
it's gone down to 17 a day to
Yeah.
40. I mean, you'll see all sorts of variants, depends on the
Yeah.
study. That is the nature of science and research is that data in and you get some data out, but not necessarily the right data and not necessarily
Yeah.
the right answers. But we know that one is too many. And so if you know someone that's having trouble with PTSD or just sort of having trouble,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
post deployment or post military service, post law enforcement firefighter, or as we in
Yeah.
law enforcement call them, second responders, the firefighters. Um, but they see some horrible things and are exposed to very very bad things. I was actually in Iraq the same time you were. Saw lots of horrible things, but I'll tell you that some of the police officers out there see things as bad or worse uh, on a regular
and they see
basis.
them and they see them daily for 20 years, right?
Right.
That's one of the major differences. And so, yeah, that is a community that definitely needs to be served.
Yeah, and it's the same sort of resistance and hesitancy to get help.
Sure.
some places
Sure.
are better than others and culturally, but as a culture, as a group, very resistant. It's for whatever reason, it's there's a lot of reasons people don't want to get
Right.
help.
Yeah.
Go get help. I like this program. There's not in your medical records. It's not a doctor's visit, and if
Right.
you're in the
Right.
DoD, you don't have to report it if it's related to a deployment. They changed the rules. I work in the
Mm.
area. I work in Intel now. They changed the rules a few years back. You don't have to report it if it's related to a deployment. That's good news.
Yeah, it's
Um,
good.
yeah, that's a huge change because people weren't going. In fact, the commander of the Intelligence and Security Command and the command sergeant major both committed suicide a few years back. And
Wow.
all of a sudden, we started taking it much more seriously about the
Mm.
risks and the concerns and the hesitancy to get help. And
Yeah,
so that sort of gendered, at least in the Army, a huge shift because,
that's good.
I mean, if the guy in charge and the sergeant major not in
Right.
trouble, both
Right.
couldn't deal with things in a positive way. Uh,
Yeah.
this is a positive way, folks. Go check it out.
Yep.
It's a fantastic organization. Jeremy, hey, thank you so much for spending the time with us on Coming Home Well.
Thank you.
And what is the website again?
The website is mightyoaksprograms.org. Mightyoaksprograms.org.
I wanted you to say it because I will write it down. We're going to put it in the show notes. So, folks, you don't have to worry about trying to write it down or record it as you're driving or anything. But, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us on Coming Home Well. I'm going to leave you with the last word. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I think what we're all looking for is hope, and what a lot of service members, veterans, first responders are asking is there hope? Is there anything beyond this? And there is always hope, but you don't need to fight these fights alone. You need to get help, and a lot of great people would love to help you.
Folks, go check out the program. It's fantastic. Jeremy, again, thank you so much for joining us and for everything you do to help these families and these veterans and first responders literally out there saving lives.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to Coming Home Well. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us this week on Coming Home Well with Dr. Tyler Piron. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. Thanks again. And until all are home and all are well, this is Coming Home Well.